So hey guys, all you Eagles out there, this is Miss Chadwick, and I just wanted to take a moment and refresh you a little bit before you take the EOC retest in December. You'll be coming back from the Thanksgiving break, and we won't have an opportunity to talk before then. So I just want to put a couple of things out there for you. One would be the persuasive essay. You need to do well on that to be successful. The other for the English one is the expository. We'll cover the short answer response using the RAID strategy. With those three things, you should be successful on the retake. My other piece of advice before you sit down to take that retake is just to be confident in yourself and know that you can do it. There has been plenty of opportunities for you to have the material in front of you, and you are better prepared, and this time is your time. So the first thing I'm going to cover is the persuasive essay. That is actually the English 2 requirement. So if you're retesting for English 2, that is the writing requirement that you have to pass to be able to pass the EOC. So probably one of the biggest mistakes students make when they sit down to write their persuasive prompt is not understanding the prompt. So the first thing I would do is I would just take the prompt, and I have the prompt here in front of me, and I'm going to read it to you, and it goes like this. Read the following quotation, and then we see that there is a box here with a quote, and there'll generally be some type of quote or saying there. The state wants to just get you thinking about where we might be going with the prompt. This one happens to say, the more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go. From I Can Read with My Eyes Shut by the great Dr. Seuss. One of my favorites. Think carefully about the following statement. According to Dr. Seuss, knowledge leads to new opportunities. Okay, then it says to write an essay stating your position on whether learning always has a positive effect on a person's life. That is your task. So don't get confused. They're not asking you to write about new opportunities, and they're not asking you to explain Dr. Seuss's quote. They're asking you to write an essay stating your position on whether learning always has a positive effect on a person's life. So I would say to you, first thing I always do, and I still do it even though I'm a teacher and I'm out of school, anytime you're writing for an academic purpose and you have a prompt, always know your task. So the way I do that to make sure I'm on track and that I'm not missing anything is I circle my verbs and I underline what action needs to be taken with those verbs. So I can be very clear that I understand what I'm supposed to be doing. So in this case, I would circle write. That would be the task. But I would also circle state, because I have to state my opinion on something. And then I would underline whether learning always has a positive effect on a person's life. So once again, if you do that, you're totally aware of what they're asking you to do. Also, when you see state your position in a prompt, that leads you to believe that you're writing a persuasive paper, and that is exactly what you have to do. It's very different from an expository piece where they just ask you to explain something. This, they want to hear your voice and your opinion. So that would be the first thing I would do. Also, you're going to see at the bottom, it says to be sure to state your position clearly, use appropriate organization, provide specific support for your argument, choose your words carefully, edit your writing for grammar, mechanics, and spelling. That last one really gets to students. I've had many students ask me, I heard they don't count about spelling and mechanics, and they don't count against you and all that stuff. They do. And they count a large amount for that. So make sure that you proofread your paper once you've written it and check for those things. And what I would like to say here is on that, make sure that you use that as your checkoff. So after you've written your paper, that's a great way to know that you've done everything that you need to do. Go back. Did I state my position? Did I use appropriate organization, and so forth? So that's a great little tool to use for that. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about attacking the prompt. So let's talk about the mechanics of writing the paper itself. The first thing I would do is always some type of brainstorming. And on a position paper, a T-chart usually works amazing. T-chart, let me remind you, is just pros and cons on both sides of the debate. and remembering that you have to pick a side. And so sometimes when you do a T-chart, what that does for you is that gives you the side that you can argue the best. So when I say the side that you can argue the best, it might not even be the side you believe in. It could be, hey, I can write a better paper even writing something I don't believe. So don't be tricked into thinking that you have to believe that side of the argument. Just you have to argue it well. So the first thing I would do is brainstorm, and that could come in all kinds of different ways. T-chart, you could just make a little note to yourself, bullet information. The main thing is you're not writing a whole paper here. You're just giving yourself some ideas to work from. At that point, I write a first draft of my thesis. Notice I have not written one thing on that lined paper yet. Do not write on that lined paper unless you have brainstormed and done a draft of your thesis statement. So I would do my draft, and on this particular question, you can use your prompt to help you. You can do an elaborate thesis statement or just a simple one, whatever is easiest for you at your level of writing. You can take this prompt. It says, write an essay stating your position on whether learning always has a positive effect on a person's life. You can simply say, learning always has a positive or negative, whichever side you choose, effect on a person's life. Obviously, you can't choose it always has a negative, but you can debate that it always has a positive, and this is what I mean. If you're going to lean on the side that it always has a positive effect, you can simply say, learning always has a positive effect on a person's life because. The because is the important part of your thesis statement, because if you don't tell me why, then you have a very weak thesis. I don't know where your paper's going. Okay? So at this point, you have to tell me why, and that makes it complete. Now, if you're going to go on the opposite side, you really would have to change your prompt up a little bit. You would have to say something like, I don't believe that learning always does have a positive effect on a person's life because, and there again you would insert your because and add your position. Once you add that reason why, you're ready to rock and roll. Now, some teachers will tell you you need to put 2 ideas in there because blank and blank, so that you will have enough to write about. Or you can simply present 1 idea, and that's fine too, as long as you can write a well-developed topic sentence and topic paragraph for that. So you always want to present enough evidence in your body paragraph that your reader really does get the point. So you just can't say, hey, I don't think learning is always positive because I really get bored in school. Well, okay, but that's not going to get you anywhere on this essay. You would have to give a reason. Some reasons might be, for example, if you go on the opposite side. I know some people get tripped up by that word always. And so while learning negative behavior would not be positive, such as if maybe a child grows up in a home where one parent is an alcoholic and they are around abusive behavior their whole life. Well, that doesn't lend to a positive learning. They learn negative behaviors. Or on the flip side, somebody may counter argue that and say that it was the behavior that was negative, not the learning. So you have to be careful because people will challenge you, and that means you've written a good paper. So be sure and use a very good concrete idea in your body paragraph. Then that comes to the counter argument that I just spoke of. Your paper does need to have a counter, but you just need to be careful that you don't give too much voice to your counter. You get in and get out, so to speak. So, for example, if you were going to argue is living in a big city or a small town the best way to go, and you chose to argue, of course it's better to live in a small town, then the counter argument might be, while some believe that the big city has much more to do and available, who wants to sit in traffic for an hour to get there? And then notice how I immediately diffused the argument and brought it back to my side of thinking. So because it is so imperative that you do not ride the fence in a persuasive paper, be sure that your counter argument is just given 1 or 2 sentences and no more. You don't want to talk yourself out of your own opinion. Okay, so now we've written our thesis, and now we've written our body paragraph with really solid evidence, and our conclusion. That gets a little tricky. I know that teachers have taught you to restate your thesis. That does not mean copy your thesis and put it one more time in your paper. It means to come up with a clever way to say it. For example, if going back to small town, big city, if my thesis was that the big city offers more job opportunity and educational opportunities, then I would not say that again in my thesis. Tell me that thesis statement with other words. Okay, so that is your persuasive paper guidelines. And here in just a minute, I will give you some clear-cut examples.